This is our series of an introduction to property investment and development. So what we've been talking about is we've been talking about strategies, and we've gone through quite a few different strategies. Last time we held the webinar, we spoke about HMOs, and I just want to go into HMOs in a bit more detail. We could have quite a few webinars on this, but if anyone is interested in HMOs, please feel free to contact any of us, and we can obviously go through exactly what to do, where to do it, and how to do it. So everyone's joined in now, so I would thank everybody for joining us here this evening. And basically, I'm going to crack on by just explaining this evening about how to run an HMO, because it's all very well buying an HMO, it's all very well looking at the facts, the figures, the stats, but how do you actually run an HMO? An HMO, by description, is a house of multiple occupancy or occupation, and it's where two or more independent families or three or more persons live under one roof. Sometimes they have their own kitchens in their bedrooms, sometimes they have their own bathrooms, they can be almost like little self-contained studios, but the majority of successful HMOs are whereby you have a property that people rent the bedroom, they have a communal kitchen, and they have communal bathroom or bathrooms in there as well. So the most important thing when you've acquired your HMO, you've done what we spoke about on the last session. You've obviously had the necessary planning permissions in place, you've converted the property, and you've made the property compliant to your local housing authority regulations. So you've installed your fire detection system, your fire doors, you've obviously made sure the bedrooms are of a suitable size, and you've achieved your license. You can't do it without a license. You must have a license in place. So once you've got your HMO license, you are ready to choose an agent. Now, that's quite sensitive of me. However, I'll explain why now. A lot of people say, I'm new to property investment. I want to go in and I want to manage the property myself. And I always say to them, hang on a second. It may look like, for example, if an agent's charging 10%, 12% per month of the gross rent roll, you might think that's quite a big expense, but it's not. If you choose the right agent, that will pay you dividends, because the right agent will not only find you good tenants, they'll also manage that property for you. So it can be like an armchair investment where all you've got to do once a month or whenever you feel necessary, just check the statements, answer queries, and obviously you have to be accountable for things like if there are repairs needed or replacements in the house. But on the whole, the letting agent will deal with the tenant calls. When the tenants ring at midnight and tell you their bulb has gone, they'll obviously deal with that for you. You haven't got to be burdened with obviously the constant management issues that go with running a property, a house of multiple occupancy. So choosing an agent. Now, it's very easy in my eyes how to choose a good agent. Choose your area, choose your HMO, buy your HMO. Look at the agents in the area. Now, I'd say most areas in the United Kingdom have an abundance of letting agents. They have some good, some bad, some indifferent. Have a look at who seems to be the most prominent agent. And importantly, in this sector, who is looking after HMOs? A lot of agents will not deal with HMOs. So therefore, they wouldn't be suitable to look after your HMO for you. Have a look for an agent that has a plethora of HMOs. And being bold, if you have a conversation, like the conversation with them, like their terms of business, I would ask to speak to an existing landlord that has property on their books. You can then get a gauge of how efficient and how effective and how well that agent is looking after their properties for them. So always ask for that. If they won't do that, and they haven't got one single landlord on their books that will step forward and refer them, I would say that rings a warning bell to me. So when we look at the terms of business, what do we want to see there? We want to see a full management contract. We want to see intricacy and detail. We want to see accountability. What do we want to see from the rates and terms? We don't go for the cheapest. Don't look for the cheapest. The difference between 10% and 12% of your rental roll of a month is minimal. The difference between a good and a bad letting agent choosing a good or a bad tenant and causing you problems is catastrophic. So look for the quality in your agent and don't go on price and don't try and do it yourself. Okay, the agent will then obviously choose tenants for you. They will ultimately give you the choice. So what they'll do is they'll advertise your room, all the usual places, Zoopla, spare room for HMOs, things like that. They'll then come back, and if you've chosen the right HMO in the right area, you've price pointed it correctly, you will have an abundance of applicants to become your tenants. So have a look at the applicants that they put forward to you. It doesn't matter, and please don't prejudge people. You may look at the style of HMO which you've got and say, right, this is a professional HMO, so we only want working people in here. That's fine. Have a look at the credentials of the working people. How long have they been working for? Has the letting agent checked their bank statements? That's really important. These days, you can tell a lot about a person from their bank statements. For example, if you were, well, obviously you wouldn't, but your letting agent were to look at a prospective tenant's bank statements, and they see there are no rent payments leaving their account to the previous landlord. Again, alarm bells. There are no rent payments leaving, but there's an awful lot of transactions with gambling websites. We've got ourselves a problem. We steer clear of that particular tenant because obviously their addiction or their lifestyle dictates the fact they haven't paid the last landlord, they're probably not going to pay us. So your letting agent has got to be very thorough with the vetting, put the tenants forward to you, and you make the decision on who takes your room. They'll be put on what we call an assured short-hold tenancy agreement. It's normally 6 months. You can have 12 months, but legally it has to have a 6-month break clause in there. So we'll look at a 6-month agreement. A lot of applicants will say to you, can we have a month? Can we have 3 months? The administration, the hassle, the trouble, the void periods in that dictate to me that, especially in our area here in South Wales, it's not financially viable to go for anything less than a standard 6-month agreement. When we were running HMOs ourselves, we had, I think it was about a 14, 15-month average tenant stay, which is fantastic. It means you've got very few void periods and you've got a great rent roll then. It's also stability for the house too. On a slightly different note, a friend of mine, he had an 8-bedroom HMO in Newport, and he said to me, I've just done an absolutely fantastic deal. He said, I've rented every single room to a local restaurant for their staff. I said, really? He said, yeah, it's great. He said, they're all in there. They started paying straight away. Job done. He didn't realize, and I foresaw the issues that would come to light there. And the major issues there are, in an HMO, you've got to have like-minded people, but you've also got to have a degree of separation between these people. And this is really important. If they're all of the same community, if they're all of the same employment, etc., it means that, for example, as in his case, what you have was an 8-bed HMO licensed for 8 persons with, at any one time, anything up to 20 people living in there. There were friends, there were colleagues sleeping on sofas in the communal areas, they were doubling up in bedrooms, but of course, nobody would say anything to the landlord or the letting agent because they were all so close, so well connected. So it was only upon inspection they actually discovered this. And of course, that breaks the terms and conditions of the HMO license. So obviously the council wouldn't be too pleased, let alone if something catastrophic happened inside that house. Obviously there would be major issues there. If you run an HMO, like I said, with like-minded people, but with a degree of separation, if, for example, one tenant is having a partner or spouse living there with them, they're having friends staying over on the sofa, they're having late night parties, they will tell the letting agent. They'll say to the letting agent, look, I don't mind. We all decided we'd have a party one Saturday night. It was great. But this is happening every night. There's loud music, there's antisocial behavior, etc., going on. So always have a degree of separation and don't go for a block rental in one particular HMO. It's fine to say, right, let's put 2 people in this house, 2 people in the house down the road, and so on and so forth. So that's really, really important. But ultimately, use your letting agent and make sure they are vetting these tenants properly. There are no guarantees. The most perfectly vetted, pristine candidate, it's very, very rare, and it's the exception rather than the general rule, but it can happen. So what we've got to do is we've got to be ultra cautious, and we've got to show a huge degree of due diligence when choosing our tenants for the actual property. The management is really important. What is your letting agent doing? It's all very well finding tenants, putting them into the properties and say, well, they're all paying, it's fine. The letting agent must inspect that property on a regular basis. They can go into the communal areas anytime they want. it's an HMO. But if they want to inspect the bedrooms, they must have the tenant's permission with the standard statutory terms on there. However, this must be done, I would recommend, on a quarterly basis. Tenants won't mind. If they've got nothing to hide and they are keeping their room to a reasonable standard, abiding by the HMO rules, which are not only the letting agent HMO rules, but also the council and obviously the government rules, they'll have no problem with it. So at least you can keep a gauge on how people are behaving in the house, responding to problems. How proactive and reactive are they at responding to issues or problems that occur within that house? Is the house being treated well? Is it being treated with respect? We expect wear and tear, but is it excessive? Are things getting broken? Is there antisocial behaviour? And is there ultimately illegal activity going on in this HMO? A good letting agent will suss it out straight away. They'll deal with it appropriately and they'll nip it in the bud. So that gives you great tenants and obviously a great way forward. And don't forget, if you've got a house of happy tenants living harmoniously, they will stay longer, so less void periods, and that's what we all want. It means more revenue for the landlord, a happy, compliant, harmonious home for all the tenants as well. So that's the management there. Maximizing revenue. I see a lot of HMOs and I think to myself, wow, you could be doing so much very more with this property. You could perhaps invest a little bit of money on refurbishments or changes to the property, and over your next 3, 5, 10, 15, 20-year period, your plan, your strategy for the HMO could change entirely. I see the flip side of that too. You know, people have said to me, shall we add ensuite bathrooms? It's going to cost £3,000 per room. It'll add an extra £50 per calendar month to each room. Well, hang on a second, that's going to take quite a few years to actually make that pay. And will people actually pay that amount extra to have a smaller room with an ensuite bathroom? So these are all things you've got to weigh up. And if you deal with people like ourselves who have got many years experience in this sector, we can help you and we can analyze any kind of decision that you want to make, and we can look at changing the strategy. We can look at adapting. We can look at modernizing your HMO to obviously maximize your revenue from it. What's going on in the local area? Is there a company that's come that needs accommodation for their staff? Is there some changes that are happening recently? Is there a new railway station being built, a new link road? All things like that. We've got to look at that and we've got to adapt and change constantly to make sure that your HMO is paying you as much as it possibly can. With a bit of forethought, a good bit of strategy, and dealing with people, like I say, like ourselves, who have many years' experience in this, you can get a really good yield from any HMO. Now, I hope you enjoyed that. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We are also available afterwards if you want to email us or Facebook message us, £2.73 property. That's our Facebook page, so please have a look at that. At the moment, I can't see any questions on there, but that's fine. I know something may come to you at a later date. And of course, to all those watching this on our YouTube site, please feel free, if you are watching this today, tomorrow, next week, next year, please feel free to email us or contact us with any questions which you may have, because we are here to help. We can help you in your journey and we can help you make money out of property.
Ben.
Karen, Peter.
Going back a little bit, you was talking about the letting agents. If you have, I assume you'd have to have some sort of contract with the letting agent if they're doing an HMO for you.
Yes.
What's the issue? If you find out that the agent isn't actually managing the property properly, how difficult is it to get out of that agreement then with the letting agent?
Well, I can't talk generically because obviously it depends what agreement you have signed with them. A good agent will always have a terms of business that's both fair to you as the landlord, the tenants, and obviously them as a business. So it's got to work for all three parties. Okay, it's got to be compliant and legal, plus it's got to be a fair contract as well. Now, if, for example, you find yourself in the unfortunate situation where, despite your best efforts, the letting agent isn't performing, you can contact that agent and make an official complaint to them. Now, they could be an independent business. They could be a one-man band, a 10-office chain, or a 1,000-office corporate chain. However, if you feel that you are not getting satisfaction from them and they are not performing as they should be, you can then make a complaint to their redress scheme. They could be with the PRS, the Ombudsman, to name but two. If you really feel that your complaint is not being taken seriously or being dealt with in a fashion that's suitable, take the complaint to the redress scheme. Now, every letting agent has to, by law, subscribe to a redress scheme where they can mediate and they can say, well, hang on a second, we've looked at this and perhaps the landlord is being a bit fussy. Perhaps the landlord is, over expecting. Or they can look at it and say, no, blatantly, you haven't fulfilled your commitment. You have done wrong. The Ombudsman will then take the complaint on board. They will deal with it appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Hope that answers that one.
Yes, thank you,
yeah,
Ben.
Answers my question too, because I was going to ask you about the recourse system. So you've already covered that.
Yes, yeah. What we're going to be looking at. Sorry,
what I was going to say is, I know it's what the agents look after, but when you're doing an HMO, bonds, how often do you take bonds on every room? Or,
to be quite honest with you, we stopped taking bonds from clients because obviously by law, the bond has to be put in the government scheme. So, I mean, you can, if you're a bigger agent, have an insurance policy and you can hold the bond yourself, and that is compliant if you comply with obviously the law on it. Mm-hmm. However, most bonds have to be put into the government scheme, the DPS. Now, I've always found that unfortunately, with the bureaucracy and the red tape, if there is a situation where you have to retain the bond or part of the bond to cover rent or damage that the tenant has done, the amount of time, effort and energy it takes to release that bond, you'd have probably been better off not even trying. So as a result of that, we actually stopped taking bonds from tenants.
We're exactly the same. We've got single let properties and we don't take bonds either.
No, because I mean, it's again, I've always tried to run the business in a very ethical and moral fashion. To say that if a tenant does not cause any unnecessary damage and their rent is paid and they have left on the proper notice terms, their bond will be returned to them. You've got to expect wear and tear. We have wear and tear in all of our own homes. However, if you get into a situation whereby the old landlords would automatically, the old school would automatically just withhold the bond because it's there for them to do so, and the tenant can't fight them, that then, to me, is ethically and morally wrong. So, like a lot of things, obviously the government scheme then came in, and it makes it so very difficult. If you get into a dispute with a tenant, it's very difficult for you to prove and for you to get any part of that bond back. And like I say, we are business people, so we've got to look at leveraging our time. So if it's going to take you 30 hours to get a £300 bond back, why try? No point. Yeah. And that, unfortunately, a lot of people may disagree with me and say I'm defeatist, but that is my view from personal experience of these scenarios.
Exactly the same here. And when you talk about normal wear and tear, we did a claim against a tenant who had a dartboard on the wall and frequently missed the dartboard, and there were all these holes around the where the dartboard had been, and we were looking to repair that and cover the cost of it out of the bond, and it was deemed normal wear and tear by the bond. So we decided, what's the point of all the time you put into it when, I'm sorry, dartboard in a bedroom is not normal wear and tear.
Indeed not. And I mean, people should expect that. Reasonable people should say, well, hang on a second, I've caused this damage. If I didn't have a dartboard, there wouldn't be that damage. If I didn't have an animal in my room, I wouldn't have to pay to have the carpets cleaned. Unfortunately, these things happen and they've got to be rectified. It shouldn't be down to the landlord to pay for that. It should be down to the tenant because it's something they've chosen to do. And it's always the case of the time versus energy versus shall we really bother doing it, always says to me, don't take bonds. I mean, I'll put the question out there because obviously I'm not currently managing HMOs at the moment, but I'll put the question out there to the people that are, and we can see what the general consensus on that actually is. But I'm sure it's probably exactly the same based on mine and, of course, your experience, Karen.
Great. I've got no more questions, Pete.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
And we've got none up in the group, so
guys, join us, please. Join us on our Facebook groups here, £2.73 Property. There's lots of really interesting posts. I put quite a few videos up because I redeveloped property myself as well. So I put videos of what we're doing, how we're doing it. There's lots of educational stuff in there. We also have a date for a course coming up, don't we, Karen? Refresh my memory.
That's what I've been trying to get out. 11th of May, we have our From Zero to Millionaire seminar, which is where we take you through the steps that not just me, but the speakers in the room to help you make money. And of course, Ben, you're one of our speakers there on property. Pete is one of our speakers on shares, and Pete does a bit on mindset as well. We have Rob Warlow, who will be doing credit cards and repairing your credit rating. Tony Thomas will be looking at pensions and how to release money from your pension for commercial investment. And we also have some people who have been doing quite well in the group, and they're going to come and share some of their stories as well.
Really good.
So that's the 11th of May. Tickets are available on Eventbrite.
Okay. We'll put a link in as well on the £2.73 Club for that, and on the YouTube page as well. So if you're watching this at a later date, obviously before May the 11th, you can sign on, get a ticket for that. What's really important, I've actually been on most of the £2.73 Zero to Millionaire courses, like Karen said, as a speaker. And I've listened to the other speakers. There's such a wide variety of strategies. It's not just property, it's shares. It's alternative investments, it's writing books. There's so many different things that are spoken about. In a nutshell, if you are interested in furthering yourself, if you are interested in supplementing your income or creating a new income, if you're interested in genuine personal wealth, this is for you. If you're quite happy with your salary and looking forward to your state pension, it's a day wasted. But I'm sure most of you watching this now are interested in creating personal wealth and obviously a secure future for yourself, your families, and the people around you. So really, really worth spending a day when you would either be shopping or sat in the pub. Spend a day and you can decide whether you think any of these strategies will help you create a better future for yourselves.
Great. Thank you, Ben.
Excellent. Well, guys, thanks for joining us, and join us next time where we will take an in-depth look at flipping properties. Now, what do I mean by that? We've just gone off the wall with this because everyone is talking about it. Everyone is watching Homes Under the Hammer. Everyone wants to buy, refurbish, and resell properties, but hardly anyone's doing it. Why? There's a really good reason why, and you'll find out if you tune in to our next webinar where I'll try and unravel this for you. Myself, alone, I did 13 individual flips, 13 properties bought, refurbished and sold last year. So I've kind of got an up-to-date modern handle on it. I've got 5 in the pipeline at the moment. So it's something that I can talk from strength about. So please, next time, make sure you tune in for that. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much to Karen and Peter.
Thank you.
All the very best to you.